All right, so we know that Silicon Valley is an industry that's largely driven by warm introductions, but sometimes you just run out of leads and have to come in cold. And guess what? It can work. So in today's episode of Uncapped Notes, we have a special guest. His name is Adam Spector of Levy. He is a friend and one of the best startup founders that I know. And he and I are going to workshop an effective cold email through a framework that he has developed. And we'll also discuss what happens after you send that cold email. Adam, how do you use cold emails in your job today? And oh yeah, by the way, what is your job?
Eric, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. So I'm the founder and CEO of Levy. We basically manage all the back office operations for startups because it is the one thing that startup founders should not be doing. One of many things, frankly, but certainly a big one founders should not be doing. Their focus and all time should be spent on essentially go to market, which we're going to talk about a lot today. And of course, then building a great product that their customers are going to want to use and get delight from. And then they should hand off everything else. One of those big things being back office.
That's right. And so you're a relatively new startup, right? You formed in the last year and change building this company. I know it's not your first rodeo, which is why I was really excited that you and I had discussed this idea around cold emails. So you have an expansive network, but are cold outreaches, cold messages still something that you need to leverage as you develop Levy?
Absolutely. So the thing is, no matter what your network is and how big it is, that's great to get you started. It's great to get you going on day one. It essentially helps you prove out that you have some level of product market fit, even if it's a market of one, right? That's great. If there's one person out there who's willing to pay you money for your product, you've got product market fit. The problem is that that's not a billion-dollar company that you're going to have. You might have a nice lifestyle business at best, but it's not a billion-dollar company. The way you get to a billion-dollar company is by finding all those people out there who don't know about your product and don't know you even exist. I mean, if they don't know you exist, they can't buy your product. And so therefore, you need to be doing a number of marketing things, one of them direct cold outreach, to essentially make your company the big dream that you and your VCs like Eric Bond might want you to achieve.
I totally agree, which is starting with this idea of your screaming fans, maybe within your warm circle in your orbit makes sense. But even at Hustle Fund, we quickly ran out of leads when we were starting our business to find more investors, and cold was the way to go. And I really do wish that I had been better friends with you and had known you back in 2017 when we got started, because I think that your framework for cold emails is really, really good and simple. And what I'd love to do is to actually have you walk through this framework for us. And then maybe we can go through an example in a little game that I've come up with. But first, let's start with, how do you think about approaching like what a good email should look like? What is this framework?
The first thing to start with, no matter what, is your subject line. The simple fact is, think about yourself and your own use of email. No matter what, Eric, right? If you see a subject line that doesn't interest you or doesn't catch your interest, and especially if it's from someone you don't know, if it's not a good subject line, you're just going to delete it. You're not even going to get to the body. So almost 50% of your work, just right off the bat, is on that subject line. It needs to be catchy. Now, there's a number of things you can hit, right? You want to see, maybe FOMO is the way to go. Maybe it uses social proof, right? If I'm targeting early stage founders and I can say, Eric Bond, one of the world's best VCs, loves Levy, that might catch your interest because Eric Bond is social proof. Things like that can really grab your interest, get you to stage one. You got to get someone to open your email. Otherwise, it's failed before you even get started.
I hear you on this. This is kind of super important. I receive about 300 to 400 emails in my inbox every day. I do respond to some cold messages, but it's quite rare. And if it's something like dear sir or madam, or just like 15 minutes of your time, it's unfortunately not going to be enough to capture my attention. So let's say that we did get past the subject line. What happens next? What should be in that body to keep that momentum going at them?
The other thing I should say as well, right? So it's not only the subject line, you also have to think through almost the first two sentences are really, really critical. Because think about how people read their email today. A lot of them, I think over 60, 70% are actually doing it on mobile in many cases. You and I may be slightly different because we're at our computers all the time. But either way, people see a preview, right? Once again, think about your email. You see a preview. So you're going to see the first two lines of that email. And that preview is so critical. So essentially those first two sentences are the second most important part. And they really have to catch sort of like the why, almost like your elevator statement. And then like who you are, right? Once again, like why should I trust this person to be willing to talk?
So I think that this is a really interesting insight I just learned from you, which is you're absolutely correct. When I'm kind of waking up and rolling out of bed, I have a very toxic habit of just kind of looking at my messages. But often on the notifications of my iPhone is that preview where I can see a little bit of the first sentence. So if that real estate is being wasted on something that's kind of trivial that, is too generic, then yeah, it's not as interesting. But if it's talking about maybe something that's going on in my life or something that's highly relevant to my interests, I think you've nailed it. So we started with subject line, maybe that initial sentence, personalization, the why. When do you actually pitch yourself then? Like what do I do? Does that come next or a little bit later?
Yeah, generally speaking, I mean, you want to get there pretty quickly because once again, you want to keep it. I'm a big believer in fairly concise emails. None of us have enough time. Maybe it depends on your target market a little bit in your ICP, but my ICP are early stage founders and they have no time. So you want to get to your point really, really quickly. Why me? Why should you talk with me? So in my case, right, when I'm talking about Levy, I'll say, this is what we do. We're going to save you 90+% of your time and money on back office tasks. Here's who I am. I'm a 4-time founder. I've invested in 150 plus companies. So I'm someone hopefully you can sort of trust. I am trying to do good for the startup ecosystem. You still might want to not want to talk to me, but at least it hopefully gives you a little bit more validation that I'm not just a random person off the street. If you have this pain point, I'm someone you should talk to.
So where does the call to action happen or the question? Is that the thing that happens next, or do you put that in the beginning, the end? Where do you usually put this for a cold email?
I usually put it closer to the end, but it really depends on each person to some extent. And these are one of the things that I also really, really recommend folks do, which is A/B test your emails. So especially if you're doing a large number of cold outbounds, and there's some debate about how much you should do and what that looks like, of course. But if you're doing a decent number of cold outbounds, A/B testing, where do you put that call to action, right? Maybe put it right up front. Hey, like click here to save 40 hours a month. And here's why. And then afterwards, you say why. I usually, though, put it right at the kind of this sort of second paragraph, but I'm assuming my first paragraph is 2 or 3 sentences at most. And my second paragraph is a call to action. And then that's it. That's my entire email.
This is great. Okay, so simple, right? So I heard 4 things primarily, which is a heavy focus on making a catchy subject line, maybe a personalization or sentence about like the why this is relevant for you, a little bit of context around what you do, and then the call to action that's sort of quickly embedded in that as well. This doesn't sound like a very long email, actually, Adam, right?
No, I try to keep it really short. And the reason being is, once again, people don't have a lot of time. And 2, you don't want to be annoying, right? I mean, people want to work with someone who is to the point, understands what they're doing, and gets to it. My company is about operational efficiency. So if I'm overly verbose in my email, what does that say about the product that I have?
There's one more thing that you mentioned when we were preparing for this show, Adam, which is dropping the contact into a drip campaign. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, so it's one of these things that almost all the major marketing tools out there today can do for you, where you essentially, I've targeted, let's say I want to target Eric Bond to get him to invest in my company. Well, Eric might be really interested in what we're building today, but he might not be, right? Eric has many interests in one day it's AI, another day it's, fintech, who knows? It changes on a regular basis. And I don't know what his interests are. He might not always know what his interests are every day. So I want to put people onto what's called a drip campaign, where I take Eric's contact information, I send him my first email, the one I think is going to get his interest the most, and tell him about my company, the way we just described. But maybe he deletes it, or he ignores it, saves it for later, whatever. I then like to hit him up again 3 days later, and then probably again another 3 days later, and then move that to a week, and then move that to a month. And then I'll keep Eric on a newsletter campaign. So he'll be on my newsletter as long as he doesn't unsubscribe. So I'll be reminding him on a monthly basis that we exist. This is who we are. And you know what? For a VC, it might take a year for you to be like, oh, wow, I've seen emails from this company 12 times now. And man, they keep having these on-point emails, newsletters. They're still in business a year later. Maybe I should actually talk to this founder and finally respond after 12 emails.
I can't emphasize enough what Adam's saying here, which is that persistence really does get noticed by a VC as well. And just that kind of clarity of communication and consistency, it's something that you want in any founder that you collaborate with, because you know exactly where they are heading and just have that kind of dogged grit to keep moving forward. So +1 on all of that you said. Okay, so we have a great framework here. Again, focusing on the subject line, maybe the personalized sentence and the why, what you do, and then the question. So if you're cool with it, Adam, I'd like to actually switch over to do a little exercise to put this into an example. You down to play this game with me?
Love it. Let's do it.
Okay, Adam, here we go. I put your framework on the top left here, and I really do hope that people will write this down, those Uncapped Notes listeners that they're watching as they're considering how to construct their own cold messages. And here is the setup. I want you to pretend that you are a hardware founder, an AI computer vision hardware founder, and you've developed a cat bidet and toilet. So the idea is my cat can do their business, and then your AI can zap water onto their little furry butts, and then there's a little hair dryer thing, and then they got these clean butts, right? So that's that is the product. And let's pretend that I am the VC and I just adopted a kitten, which I'm actually considering doing because I have a horrible rodent problem in my garage right now, which you may notice is why I'm not in my garage right now. One of the reasons. Adam, I'd love to actually do a little exercise here, trying to develop an actual email that you think would be appropriate as you, the Cat Bidet founder. Does this make sense?
Makes a ton of sense. Love it. I'm smiling already just thinking about.
All right, okay. So how are you going to capture my attention? 300 emails coming in. What do you tend to find as a good hook for founders to think through as we construct our subject lines?
The best hook to start off with in some ways would be, I'm going to assume that you are my target consumer. I tend to believe that VCs invest in things that they have a clear interest in and can understand somewhat well. I mean, obviously, many of the best ones think differently in some cases too, but there's a clear interest. In other words, like if you're someone who doesn't know a lot about cats, you're probably not going to invest in my company, in my Cat Bidet. So therefore, I want to catch your interest right off the bat. Now, my body of my email will be a little bit different, but the subject line would be pretty much the same. So I don't know, the subject line that I just was thinking about now would be something like stinky cat butt got you down, and I personally would put in probably, I'm a big fan of emojis just because it livens things up and people don't do it all that often. So like, a funky cat with like a turd emoji or something like that.
This is hilarious. Okay, I would definitely take a look at this. This is hilarious. And what I love about this too, Adam, is it also emotes a little bit of your personality as someone who seems a little bit funny, fun, doesn't take themselves too seriously. Because, at the end of the day, as a VC, we also are investing in the person for a very long time. And it's not just great to have professional fit, but if there's a little bit of that personal fit too, then this would really resonate with me.
And I'll add, going back to the main point about that, I'm going to write this email almost like you are my target consumer, is because, I don't want to get too far in the VC investing world, but in the end, when you're investing in a company, a hardware startup or a SaaS company, you name it, you're also investing in the person's ability to market and sell their product. So if I'm unable to get your interest as a potential cat owner in my product as a VC, can a VC really trust me to actually get other consumers interested in buying my product? And the answer is probably no. So I better have really damn good emails to reach my target market, including VCs.
So for those who are watching, Adam did not prep this at all. I kind of sprung this on him. So you can see that he's done this for a while because already we're off to a great start. Okay, so let's jump into that personalized sentence, the why. What would be like a good example of a lead-in for this?
I would probably use a bit of facts, or I might even use a personalized story to some extent. Be like, my cat doesn't wipe its butt. It stinks up my house. Does it stink up yours as well? Do you have the same problem? So someone's thinking about it now.
Yeah. Okay. And I just got a kitten. Let's say that like I've been tweeting about this incessantly. That I think is cool. And then maybe even like in that kind of case, with that detail I just shared, it could be like, I heard you just got a new kitty kind of thing. Maybe do you ever like kind of pull in some of those like social media clues as well, Adam?
Yeah, if I'm being really targeted, for sure. Like with VCs, I probably would be a lot more targeted because obviously in the space of venture capitalists that I'm targeting is relatively small.
Yeah.
So I probably would personalize my email as much as possible. Like if I know Eric Bond is one of the VCs I want to target, I would go through your entire social media feed for the past probably 6 months to see if there's something I could reference, because that would also catch your interest.
In this case, maybe we shouldn't, though. Let's pretend that this is a little bit more broad,
Yep.
Right? And I actually think it's not pragmatic to always go down that, unless it's a whale, right? It's just like, I'm trying to reach Adam. He's going to be the perfect client. He's going to be worth like $250,000 a year for my scaled cat enterprise or something. Yes. But in many cases, I think it's just not pragmatic, right? But this is still a pretty good hook. Let's move on to the next section. So the what do you do? And then followed by the call to action question.
Yeah, I would say I solved this problem with my Cat Bidet, and I probably would put in a GIF of my Cat Bidet working.
Ooh.
To show it off. So I literally create a GIF of my product working. Now, there's always a challenge that GIFs don't always load in email because people have images turned off or things like that. I might also want to include a link to it just in case it's turned off. But people probably want to see a Cat Bidet. It's just one of those catchy things that you probably want to watch the video of or actually see it working.
Yeah. Okay. This is crazy. Would you ever include then a little bit like, I'm trying to struggle with length a little bit here because I would want to mention almost the things like it uses computer vision to be like super sanitary, stuff like that. But maybe that's too much detail. Like what are your thoughts in terms of like how much more detail you would include beyond maybe the image, or does the image speak for itself?
I think the image probably speaks for itself. But the other big part is founders have a bad tendency to want to oversell features and not sell emotions. So in the end, I think the best salespeople sell emotions, and the bad ones want to be like, well, I have 10 features that make me better. No one cares about your features. Do you solve my problem? My problem is my cat's butt stinks. And therefore, I want my house to smell nice. I don't care if it uses computer vision or uses like somebody who's manually controlling a camera to aim at my cat's butt from overseas or something. Like whatever it is, I don't really care as long as it does its job. Like my house will smell better.
Simple solution. My cat's butt smells fresh.
And I would put in this case, of course, as well, the reason why for my target market, in this case, VCs, this is important. So I would say there are, 300 million cats in the United States. Out of those, the cat owners spend, what I'm going to guess, like $100 a month on their cats. Therefore, this is a great opportunity. I'd love to chat with you and tell you more. I'd love to chat with you if you care about your cat's butt smelling nicely. Something to make it funny still.
Okay. So like it's a great opportunity to improve cat health and human health, I'd say. Would love to chat more. Or maybe is that a strong enough call to action?
No, I usually like to say something more specific. Time for a chat. Here's my calendar. And then I personally then also CC my EA and then let her do a follow-up too sometimes.
Yeah, I dig this. So that was pretty quick. Like subject line, stinky cat butt got you down. Funny emojis. Hey, Eric, my cat doesn't wipe its butt and it stinks up my house. Do you have the same issue? I solved this problem with my cat bidet. Take a look. GIF plus link to the solution. It's a simple solution that makes my cat's butt smell fresh now. There are 300 million cats in the US, and today cat owners spend over $100 a month on their cats. This is a great opportunity to improve cat health and human health. Time for a chat. Here's my calendar, or here's my EA. Simple. I think what I like about this too is, I rarely get a cold message that is this brief, right? And this to the point. Kudos to that. It seems like you've done this before. Maybe you actually do have a cat bidet company I was not aware of, Adam. It seemed a little bit too easy for you.
Not yet, but it's not a terrible idea. Animal owners spend a lot of money on their animals, their pets. So it's a good market.
All right, founders. So we just been speaking with Adam, the founder of Levy. We had a great discussion around how to develop a great cold email, including this example with a cat bidet. So just a reminder there, start with a catchy subject line, focus on that personalized sentence and the why, and then a sentence about what you do. Maybe sometimes there's an opportunity for images as well to sort of paint that picture, and then the call to action at the end. It can be very short and it will work, because this is exactly how I approach cold messages over my last 20 years in my career as well. And I can attest that Adam is totally spot on. Adam, I really do hope that you'll come back and do more episodes of Uncapped Notes with us. It's always fun to see you, my friend. And I got to mention that Levy is in the business of abstracting away the time, the complexity of back offices for startup founders so that they can focus on the most important things. What do you usually emphasize for new founders as the most important things for them to focus on?
Yeah, it's really simple, Eric. Number one, go to market. And you should start that sooner rather than later. Don't wait. You should be doing that way before you have any product market fit. But of course, at the same time, you need to be building a fantastic product. Those are the only two things founders should spend time on. Now, that means you outsource everything else, including the back office operations running that business. That's why after 4 companies I've started Levy, is because you want to outsource that stuff. Back office operations, hand it off to someone else. You are not the expert. And it's one of many things, just like bookkeeping and accounting, you hand it off to bookkeepers. You're not your own lawyer. You hire lawyers to go do that work. Why do you do all that? Yes, it costs a little bit more than doing it yourself, but it gets done right and it's off of your mental plate. So you can get back to focusing on the only 2 things that matter: building a freaking badass, delightful product and making sure people know that you exist so they can actually even buy and use your product. If they don't know you exist, it doesn't matter how good the product is. So you need to do both those things, and that is it.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you again, Adam, for all this advice and these examples and this framework for cold messages. And thank you all Uncapped Notes listeners for tuning in today. Hope to see you in the next episode. All the best.